How to lead and inspire others. Have you ever met someone who walks into a room and just changes the energy? They're not necessarily the loudest or the most important person there, but people listen when they speak. People trust them. They make you feel like you can achieve more. We often think of leadership as a title, a CEO, a general, a president. We put it on a pedestal, something out of reach for most of us. But that's a myth. Leadership isn't a title, it's an action, it's a choice. It's the parent guiding a child, the friend who lifts you up when you're down, the colleague who takes the time to explain something complicated. True leadership is about making the people around you better. It's about inspiring others to see a better version of themselves. This book isn't a textbook filled with complicated theories. It's a conversation. It's a practical guide to unlocking the leader that is already inside you. We're not going to talk about corner offices and corporate ladders. We're going to talk about the human-to-human connections that create real influence and lasting impact. Together, we'll explore how to lead the most important person you'll ever be in charge of, yourself. Then, we'll learn how to connect with others, how to spark a fire in them, how to navigate the inevitable storms, and finally, how to create a positive ripple effect that lasts long after you're gone. So, take a deep breath. Let's begin this journey. Before we begin, I have a question for you. Think of one person, anyone from your past or present, who you truly consider a leader. It doesn't have to be someone famous. It could be a teacher, a family member, or a friend. What was one quality they had that made you see them that way? Take a moment and share that one quality in the comments below. Your answer might just inspire someone else. Chapter 1. Lead yourself first, the inner compass. Before you can ever hope to guide a team, inspire a community, or even lead your own family with clarity and strength, you must first master the art of leading the single most complex, challenging, and rewarding person you will ever manage, yourself. This is the absolute non-negotiable starting point. It's the foundation upon which all else is built. Think of it like constructing a skyscraper. You wouldn't start by worrying about the color of the paint on the penthouse floor. You would spend most of your time, your energy, and your resources on the foundation, digging deep into the bedrock, pouring concrete and steel, ensuring that what you build can withstand any storm. Leading yourself is that foundation. Without it, any success you build will be fragile, temporary, and at risk of collapsing under the first sign of pressure. We live in a world that encourages us to look outward. We look outward for validation, for direction, for blame, and for happiness. But true leadership is an inside-out job. It begins in the quiet, often uncomfortable space of self-examination. It's about building an internal compass that is so finely tuned, so reliable, that it can guide you through the fog of uncertainty and the noise of external opinions. This chapter is your guide to building that compass. We will break this down into 3 core pillars. First, we'll undertake the mirror test, a journey into radical self-honesty to discover who you really are and what you truly stand for. Second, we will learn what it means to become the captain of your ship, shifting from a mindset of circumstance and blame to one of absolute ownership and responsibility. And third, we'll cover the practical disciplines of fueling your own engine, because a leader running on empty can inspire no one. So let's begin where all true journeys do, by looking in the mirror. The first section is the mirror test. Who are you really? Imagine a woman named Sarah. On the surface, Sarah is the definition of success. She's a senior manager at a respected company. She has a beautiful apartment, a great car, and a social media feed that paints a picture of a perfect life. Her team respects her because she's smart and efficient. She gets things done. But late at night, when the emails stop and the house is quiet, Sarah feels a deep, nagging sense of emptiness. She feels like she's an actor playing a part. She's following a script that someone else wrote for her. Get the good grades, get the good job, get the promotion. She's checking all the boxes, but she doesn't feel alive. She's leading a team of 15 people, but she feels completely and utterly lost. Sarah's problem is not a lack of intelligence or a lack of ambition. Her problem is a lack of connection with herself. She has never stopped to ask the fundamental questions: who am I, separate from my job title? What do I actually care about deep down in my soul? What are the principles I would be willing to fight for? She has been so busy climbing the ladder that she never checked to see if the ladder was leaning against the right wall. This is a quiet epidemic in our modern world. We build impressive external lives on top of hollow internal foundations. This is where the mirror test comes in. It's not about looking at your physical reflection. It's about looking past the surface, past the titles and the roles you play, and asking, who is the person looking back at me? True leadership begins with this act of radical self-honesty. You cannot lead others authentically if you are a stranger to yourself. It's like trying to give someone directions in a city you've never been to. You might be able to read them a map, but you can't tell them about the best shortcuts, the hidden gems, or the dangerous alleys to avoid. Your leadership will be shallow, robotic, and uninspiring. The reason so many of us avoid this deep self-reflection is simple. It's scary. It's much easier to stay busy, to keep checking boxes, to distract ourselves with the next goal or the next crisis. Because in the quiet, we might not like what we find. We might find that the values we claim to have don't match the way we actually live our lives. This uncomfortable feeling has a name in psychology: cognitive dissonance. It's the mental stress you feel when you hold two or more contradictory beliefs, ideas, or values, or when your actions contradict your beliefs. For example, you might believe deeply in the value of family, but consistently work late and miss dinner with your kids. Or you might say that health is your top priority, but you eat poorly and never exercise. This dissonance creates a low-grade hum of anxiety and unease in our lives. It's the feeling Sarah had late at night. It's the feeling of being an imposter in your own life. Great leaders, inspirational leaders, work tirelessly to close this gap. Their life becomes a living, breathing expression of their core values. Their actions and their words are in harmony. This creates a powerful magnetic resonance that people are drawn to. It's called authenticity, and it is the bedrock of trust. So, how do we do it? How do we perform this mirror test and begin to close the gap between the person we are and the person we want to be? It's not a one-time event, but a lifelong practice. But it starts with a simple, deliberate process. I want you to find a time in the next few days, even just 30 minutes, where you can be completely alone and uninterrupted. No phone, no computer, no distractions. Just you, a pen, and a piece of paper. This is not for anyone else to see. This is for you. We are going to do a 3-step values discovery exercise. Step 1 is the brain dump. At the top of the page, write the question: what is truly important to me? Now for the next 10 minutes, I want you to just write. Don't filter, don't judge, don't analyze, just let it flow. What makes you angry? What makes you feel alive? What qualities do you admire most in other people? When in your life did you feel most proud? When did you feel most like yourself? Write down single words or full sentences. Words like honesty, family, freedom, security, adventure, compassion, creativity, growth, justice, order, wealth, impact, faith. Let the words pour out. Fill the page. Don't worry if they contradict each other. The goal here is quantity, not quality. Just get it all out of your head and onto the paper. Now for step 2, the categorization. Look at the list you've created. You will likely see patterns emerging. Some words might be very similar. For example, you might have written down honesty, integrity, and truthfulness. These can be grouped together. Or maybe you wrote down adventure, novelty, and exploration. That's another group. Circle these related concepts and give each group a single, powerful name that represents its core theme. Maybe honesty, integrity, truthfulness all fall under the core value of truth. Maybe adventure, novelty, exploration become the value of discovery. Go through your entire list and try to condense it down to about 10 to 15 core value themes. This brings us to step 3, the most difficult and most important part, the forced choice. Look at your list of 10 to 15 values. Now ask yourself this brutal question: if I could only live by 5 of these for the rest of my life, which ones would they be? This is hard because all of them feel important, but a compass with 15 different norths is useless. A leader who stands for everything stands for nothing. You must choose. Imagine you are building your own personal Mount Rushmore. You only have space for 4 or 5 faces. Who gets a spot? To help you, try this visualization. Imagine yourself at 90 years old, sitting on your porch looking back at your life. What values would need to have been present for you to consider your life a success, a life well lived? Would it be a life of adventure, even if it meant less security? Or would a life of contribution be more important than a life of wealth? There are no right or wrong answers, only your answers. Force yourself to narrow it down. Circle your top 5. Now look at that list. These 5 words are the foundation of your inner compass. This is your personal definition of North. These are the values that should guide every decision you make, every action you take. Write them on a small card and put it in your wallet. Type them into the Notes app on your phone. Put them somewhere you will see them every single day. Now comes the hard work that continues for the rest of your life, living in alignment with these values. For every major decision you face, pull out that list. Does this job offer align with my value of family? Does this relationship align with my value of honesty? Does the way I spend my money align with my value of growth? The goal is to slowly, deliberately, close the gap between what you say you value and what you actually do. This is the path of integrity. This is the path of the authentic leader. Every time you make a choice that is in alignment with your core values, you build self-trust. You become more solid, more centered. The nagging feeling of being an imposter begins to fade, replaced by a quiet confidence. You stop needing so much external validation because you are generating your own internal validation. You are living a life that is true, and from that place of authentic self-knowledge, a new kind of leadership becomes possible, a leadership that doesn't come from a script, but from the soul. A leadership that doesn't just manage people, but genuinely inspires them. Because people are not inspired by perfection. They are inspired by the genuine, courageous journey of a fellow human being who has done the hard work of knowing themselves and is brave enough to live it. Now that you've begun the process of identifying your destination with your inner compass, it's time to take the helm. Knowing your values is like having a map, but a map is useless if you believe someone else is steering the ship, or worse, that the ship is simply at the mercy of the wind and the waves. This brings us to the second pillar of self-leadership, becoming the captain of your ship. This is about taking radical, 100% responsibility for your life, your actions, your reactions, your career, your relationships, your happiness, all of it. This is arguably the single biggest mindset shift a person can make, and it is the absolute dividing line between those who lead and those who are led, between those who create their lives and those who simply accept the life they are given. To illustrate this, let's consider 2 people working at the same company, faced with the exact same challenge. Let's call them Ben the Blamer and Rachel the Responder. Their department gets a new, difficult software system installed. It's clunky, it's not intuitive, and it slows everyone down. Ben the Blamer immediately goes into victim mode. He complains to his colleagues constantly. "This new system is terrible," he says. "I can't get any work done. Management has no idea what they're doing. They never listen to us. My productivity is going to tank, and it's not my fault." Ben's language is full of external forces. He sees the problem as something that is happening to him. He focuses on blame and complaint. As a result, his energy is negative. He frustrates his teammates, his performance suffers, and he feels powerless and resentful. He is a passenger on his own ship, complaining about the weather. Now let's look at Rachel the Responder. She feels the same frustration. The new software is genuinely difficult, but her internal response is completely different. Her first thought is not, "Whose fault is this?" but, "Okay, this is the reality. What can I do about it?" Rachel takes ownership. She doesn't waste energy complaining. Instead, she invests that energy in finding solutions. She spends an hour after work watching tutorial videos. She finds a few keyboard shortcuts that save time and shares them with the team. She schedules a meeting with her manager, not to complain, but to offer constructive feedback. She says, "I know this transition is tough. A few of us have found some workarounds that are helping. Could we maybe schedule a 30-minute session where we share these tips with the rest of the team to help everyone get up to speed faster?" Look at the difference. Ben sees himself as a victim of circumstance. Rachel sees herself as an agent of change. Ben gives his power away. Rachel claims her power. Who is the leader in this scenario? It's not a trick question. Rachel is leading. She's leading herself, she's influencing her team in a positive way, and she's leading her manager toward a solution. She doesn't have a special title, she just has a different mindset. This concept is well documented in psychology under the term locus of control, first developed by Julian Rotter in the 1950s. It's a fancy term for a simple idea, where you believe the power in your life resides. People with a strong external locus of control, like Ben the Blamer, believe that their lives are controlled by outside forces, fate, luck, other people, circumstances. They are thermometers, simply reflecting the temperature of the room around them. People with a strong internal locus of control, like Rachel the responder, believe that they have the power to influence events and their outcomes through their own actions and efforts. They are thermostats. They don't just reflect the temperature of the room, they work to set it. Unsurprisingly, countless studies have shown that people with a strong internal locus of control are more successful in their careers, healthier, and report higher levels of happiness and satisfaction with their lives. It is a foundational trait of all effective leaders. So, how do we cultivate an internal locus of control? How do we stop being a thermometer and start being a thermostat? It's a daily practice, a rewiring of your brain. Here is a practical 3-step process to help you make this shift. I call it the OAR method: own, act, reframe. The first step is own. When you are faced with a challenge or a setback, your first instinct might be to blame. Your project is delayed and you want to blame the other department. You get in an argument with your partner and you want to list all the things they did wrong. You're not reaching your fitness goals and you want to blame your busy schedule. I want you to practice catching that first instinct. And in that moment, before you speak, I want you to ask yourself one simple, powerful question. What was my part in this? This is not about self-flagellation. It's not about beating yourself up. It is about finding the piece of the situation, no matter how small, that you can claim ownership of. Maybe the project was delayed because you weren't clear enough in your initial instructions. Maybe the argument with your partner escalated because you used a harsh tone. Maybe you didn't reach your fitness goals because you chose to scroll on your phone for 30 minutes instead of going for a walk. Finding your role, your percentage of the responsibility, is the most empowering thing you can do. It moves you from the passenger seat to the driver's seat. The moment you own even 1% of the problem, you gain the power to influence 1% of the solution. The second step is act. Once you've identified your part, you must take action. A victim complains, a leader acts. This doesn't have to be a monumental act. It's about focusing on the very next, smallest, most productive step you can take. Rachel didn't try to fix the entire software system herself. She watched one tutorial video. She found one shortcut. She sent one email. Your power lies not in controlling the entire ocean, but in controlling the rudder of your own ship. What is the one thing you can do right now to move the situation forward, even by an inch? If you're in debt, you can't pay it all off today, but you can make a budget. You can cancel one subscription. You can choose to make coffee at home. These small, controllable actions build momentum. They send a powerful signal to your brain that you are in charge, not your circumstances. Remember, you can't control the traffic, but you can control which route you take and the music you listen to in the car. Focus on your rudder. The third and final step is reframe. This is about changing the story you tell yourself. The language of a victim is passive and powerless. I have to go to this meeting. I can't get a promotion because my boss doesn't like me. I got stuck in traffic. The language of a captain, an owner, is active and empowered. I want you to consciously practice reframing your thoughts and your words. Instead of I have to, try I get to or I choose to. I have to go to this meeting becomes I get to share my ideas with the team. It's a subtle shift, but it changes everything. It reframes a chore as an opportunity. Instead of I can't because, try I can if. So, I can't get a promotion because my boss doesn't like me becomes I can position myself for a promotion if I can find a way to demonstrate my value to my boss more effectively. The first statement is a dead end. The second is a doorway to solutions. Finally, reframe events. I got stuck in traffic becomes, the traffic was heavy, so I used the time to listen to an interesting podcast. You are no longer a passive recipient of events. You are an active participant, finding the opportunity in every obstacle. Becoming the captain of your ship is a lifelong commitment. You will still face storms. The wind and the waves will still be there. But you will no longer feel like you are at their mercy. You will have your hands firmly on the wheel, your eyes on the horizon, guided by the compass of your values. You will understand the profound and liberating truth that while you cannot always control what happens to you, you can always control how you respond. And in that response lies your power. In that response lies your freedom. In that response lies your leadership. Taking full ownership of your life and your responses is a demanding task. It requires immense mental and emotional energy. A captain who is exhausted, running on fumes and navigating with a foggy mind is a danger to themselves and their crew. This is why the third pillar of self-leadership is perhaps the most practical and the most overlooked: fueling your own engine. We live in a culture that glorifies burnout. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. We brag about how little we sleep, how many hours we work, how we're grinding 24/7. But this is a profound misunderstanding of what it takes to perform at a high level over the long term. A leader who is burned out cannot inspire. A leader who is stressed and reactive cannot be wise. A leader who is unhealthy cannot be strong. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Self-care is not selfish. It is the most fundamental act of stewardship you can perform as a leader. If your team, your family, or your community depends on you, then it is your responsibility to show up as the best version of yourself, and that requires you to be well-rested, well-nourished, and mentally clear. The key insight here is that we need to stop managing our time and start managing our energy. Time is finite. We all get 24 hours in a day, but the quality and quantity of our energy is something we can influence. Think of your energy as having 4 key dimensions, like 4 interconnected batteries that power your life: your physical energy, your mental energy, your emotional energy, and your spiritual energy. To be a truly effective leader, you must be disciplined about recharging all 4. Let's start with the most obvious one: physical energy. This is the raw fuel in your tank. The cornerstones are simple but not easy: sleep, nutrition, and movement. Let's talk about sleep. We treat sleep as a luxury, but it is a biological necessity. The science is overwhelming. Sleep is not a passive state of shutdown. It is an active process during which your brain cleanses itself of metabolic waste, consolidates memories, and processes emotional experiences. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention has declared sleep deprivation a public health epidemic. When you consistently get less than 7 hours of sleep, your cognitive function, your emotional regulation, and your immune system are all severely compromised. A sleep-deprived leader is more likely to be irritable, impatient, and make poor decisions. You are not a hero for working on 3 hours of sleep. You are a liability. So, how do we improve our sleep? It's about creating a disciplined routine. Go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on weekends. This stabilizes your circadian rhythm. Create a shutdown ritual an hour before bed. Turn off all screens. The blue light from phones and computers tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime, suppressing the release of melatonin, the hormone that helps you sleep. Read a physical book. Meditate. Listen to calming music. Make your bedroom a sanctuary for sleep, cool, dark, and quiet. Protecting your sleep is the single most effective thing you can do to improve your daily energy. Next is nutrition. We don't need to get complicated here. Think of it this way. Are you eating to numb and distract, or are you eating to fuel and perform? Your body is a high-performance engine. You wouldn't put cheap, low-grade fuel in a Ferrari. Your brain consumes about 20% of your body's calories. What you eat directly impacts your focus, your mood, and your energy levels. The simple rules are the best. Eat real food, more plants, lean proteins, healthy fats. Drink lots of water. And pay attention to your blood sugar. A diet high in sugar and processed carbohydrates sends you on a roller coaster of energy spikes and crashes. This leads to brain fog and that dreaded mid-afternoon slump. A steady supply of good fuel leads to steady, reliable energy all day long. Finally, movement. Our bodies were designed to move. A sedentary life is a low-energy life. You don't need to become a marathon runner. The goal is consistent, daily movement. A study from Stanford University found that a simple 10-minute walk can boost creative output by an average of 60%. When you feel stuck on a problem, the best thing you can do is not to stare at your screen harder, but to get up and move. Take a walk during your lunch break. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Do a few stretches every hour. Exercise is not just about physical health. It is a powerful tool for managing stress and boosting mental clarity. It releases endorphins, which are natural mood elevators. Think of movement as a way of clearing the static from your mind. The second battery is your mental energy. This is your ability to focus, to think clearly, and to solve complex problems. In our modern world, this battery is under constant assault. We are bombarded by notifications, emails, and an endless stream of information. The result is a state of continuous partial attention. We are always switched on, but rarely fully focused. The number one drain on our mental energy is context switching, the act of jumping from one unrelated task to another. Research has shown that it can take over 20 minutes to regain deep focus after even a small interruption. To recharge your mental energy, you must become ruthless about protecting your focus. This means practicing deep work. Schedule blocks of 60 to 90 minutes in your calendar for your most important tasks, and during that time, turn off all distractions. No email, no phone, just pure uninterrupted focus. This is where your best work happens. Another powerful technique is to embrace stillness. Our brains need downtime to process information and make connections. Just like your muscles grow during rest, not during the workout. Your mind strengthens in moments of quiet. This could be a 5-minute meditation in the morning, or simply sitting in silence for a few minutes between meetings, focusing on your breath. This practice of stillness reduces reactivity and creates a space for clearer, more thoughtful decision-making. The third battery is your emotional energy. This is your capacity for patience, empathy, and optimism. For a leader, this is perhaps the most critical energy source. Your emotional state is contagious. If you are anxious and stressed, your team will be anxious and stressed. If you are calm and optimistic, you create an environment of psychological safety where people can do their best work. The biggest drain on emotional energy is negativity, both internal and external. Ruminating on past mistakes, worrying about the future, and engaging in gossip or complaint are like drilling holes in your emotional battery. One of the most powerful ways to recharge your emotional energy is through the practice of gratitude. Numerous studies in positive psychology have shown that gratitude literally rewires your brain. It boosts serotonin and dopamine, the neurotransmitters of happiness and well-being. Start a simple daily practice. At the end of each day, write down 3 specific things that went well and your role in making them happen. This trains your brain to scan for the positive instead of defaulting to the negative. Another key practice is to learn to manage your emotional triggers. When you feel a strong negative emotion like anger or frustration rising, practice the pause. Take a deep breath. This simple act creates a crucial space between the stimulus and your response. In that space lies your power to choose a more resourceful and productive reaction, rather than an impulsive one that you will later regret. Finally, we have spiritual energy. This has nothing to do with religion, unless that is important to you. Spiritual energy is about your connection to a sense of purpose and meaning. It's the energy you get from being part of something bigger than yourself. It's your why. This is the energy that gets you through the tough times, the energy that fuels your resilience. It connects directly back to the values you identified in the mirror test. You recharge this battery by regularly and intentionally connecting with your purpose. This could mean spending 5 minutes before you start your workday, reminding yourself of the mission of your team and the impact you want to have. It could mean engaging in work that you find intrinsically enjoyable and meaningful. It could also come from service, from helping others without any expectation of return. When you feel your motivation waning, it's often a sign that your spiritual battery is low. The cure is to reconnect with your why. Why are you doing what you are doing? Who are you serving? What impact do you want to leave behind? Leading yourself is not a single destination you arrive at. It is a continuous, dynamic process of self-discovery, self-ownership, and self-care. It is the quiet, daily work of looking in the mirror and aligning your actions with your values. It is the courageous choice to take the helm and steer your ship with purpose, no matter the weather. And it is the wise discipline of keeping your own engine fueled so that you have the strength, the clarity, and the generosity of spirit to light the way for others. This is the foundation, and now that we have laid it, we are ready to build upon it. We are ready to turn our focus outward and learn the art of connection. Chapter 2. The Art of Connection, Building Bridges, Not Walls. If the first leg of our journey was about building a solid foundation within yourself, this next leg is about building bridges from your foundation to others. Leadership does not exist in a vacuum. It is not something you do alone in a quiet room. It is a profoundly social act. It is born, it lives, and it thrives in the space between people. You can have the clearest values in the world, you can be the most responsible person alive, and you can have boundless energy. But if you cannot forge a genuine connection with another human being, your leadership will remain a purely theoretical concept. Your influence will be zero. All great leadership is built on a bedrock of great relationships, and all great relationships are built on the skill of connection. Notice that I used the word skill. We often have a mistaken belief that the ability to connect with others is a personality trait, an innate gift that some people are just born with. We see someone who can effortlessly command a room or make a stranger feel like an old friend, and we think, well, they're just a people person. I'm not like that. This is a profoundly limiting belief, and it is completely false. Connecting is not a magical talent. It is a set of skills, and like any skill, it can be learned, it can be practiced, and it can be mastered. It requires intention, effort, and a willingness to step outside of your own head and into the world of another. This chapter is your training manual for the 3 fundamental skills of connection. First, we will learn to listen like a detective, moving beyond simply hearing words to truly understanding the person speaking them. This is the most underrated and most powerful leadership tool in existence. Second, we will explore how to flip the empathy switch, the ability to genuinely see the world from another person's perspective, which is the key to building trust and de-escalating conflict. And finally, we will master how to speak to be understood, because a brilliant idea that is communicated poorly is a brilliant idea that will die. Our goal is not to build walls of authority and status, but to build bridges of understanding, trust, and mutual respect. Let's begin by learning how to lay the first and most important plank of that bridge, the art of listening. The first section is Listen like a detective. In a world that is screaming for attention, the rarest and most precious gift you can give another person is the gift of being truly heard. We are inundated with communication workshops that teach us how to speak more persuasively, how to write more effectively, and how to present with more confidence. But very few of us have ever been taught how to listen. It's the most used communication skill and the least taught. We spend years learning to read and write, but we are expected to just know how to listen. The result is a world full of people who are not really listening, but are simply waiting for their turn to talk. The author, Stephen Covey, identified this perfectly. He called it autobiographical listening. This is when we listen to other people through the filter of our own experiences, our own opinions, and our own needs. We listen with the intent to reply, not with the intent to understand. Someone tells us about a problem they're having, and our mind immediately races to fix it, to give advice, to share a story about a time we had a similar problem. A team member comes to us with a concern, and while they are speaking, we are not fully present with them. Instead, we are formulating our rebuttal, preparing our defense, or planning what we're going to say next to prove our point. This is not communication. This is a series of intersecting monologues. It makes the other person feel dismissed, misunderstood, and unimportant. It erodes trust and shuts down the possibility of real collaboration. To be a leader, to be someone who inspires, you must break this habit. You must learn to listen in a radically different way. You must listen like a detective. A detective who arrives at a crime scene doesn't immediately start shouting out their theories. They don't talk, they observe. They look for clues. They ask questions. They listen to the witnesses, not just for the facts, but for the hesitations, the contradictions, the emotions. They are on a mission to understand the full picture before they ever form a conclusion. This is the kind of listening that builds bridges. It signals to the other person, "What you have to say matters, you matter, I'm here to understand." When people feel that, they will give you their trust, their loyalty, and their best ideas. So how do we do this? How do we transform ourselves from an autobiographical listener into a detective? It requires the practice of 5 distinct skills. Let's break them down, one by one. The first skill is the simplest and the hardest, the vow of silence. I mean this quite literally. Your first job as a listener is to shut up. This is harder than it sounds because our brains are wired to jump in, to add value, to contribute. But very often, the most valuable contribution you can make is your silence. This means you stop interrupting people. Let them finish their entire thought, even if you think you know where they're going. Let them finish their entire story, even if it's rambling a bit. An interruption, no matter how well-intentioned, sends a clear message. What I have to say is more important than what you are currently saying. It's a subtle power play that makes people feel devalued. Beyond simply not interrupting, you must learn to embrace the pause. When the other person finishes speaking, don't immediately jump in with your response. Instead, wait. Take a breath. Count to 3 in your head. This short buffer of silence does 2 magical things. First, it ensures that the person is truly finished. Often, the most important part of what someone wants to say comes after a pause, as a final, more vulnerable thought. If you jump in too quickly, you will cut them off right before they get to the good part. Second, the silence gives them space to go deeper. An uncomfortable silence often compels the speaker to elaborate, to clarify, to offer more detail. It's a gentle, respectful way of saying, "Tell me more," without saying a word. A great leader knows that silence is not an empty space. It is a space filled with opportunity for deeper understanding. Your challenge this week is to practice this. In your next conversation, make a conscious effort to let the other person finish completely and then wait for 3 full seconds before you respond. Notice what happens. The second skill is to listen with your whole body. Communication is not just about the words that are exchanged. In fact, the famous research by Professor Albert Mehrabian suggested that in certain emotional contexts, the words themselves only account for a small fraction of the message's impact. The majority is conveyed through tone of voice, and most importantly, body language. You can be completely silent, but if your body is sending signals of impatience or disinterest, the other person will feel it. They won't feel heard. Listening with your whole body means being physically and visually present. First, put away the distractions. If you are having a conversation with someone, put your phone away. Don't just turn it face down on the table. Put it in your pocket or your bag. Turn away from your computer screen. These actions send a powerful, non-verbal message. For the next few minutes, you are the most important thing in my world. Second, orient your body toward the speaker. Angle your chair and your shoulders to face them directly. This shows you are engaged. Third, maintain eye contact. This doesn't mean an aggressive, unbroken stare. It means a natural, relaxed gaze that shows you are paying attention. Let your eyes soften. If you're uncomfortable with direct eye contact, look at the bridge of their nose. And fourth, use simple, non-verbal cues to show you are tracking with them. A simple nod of the head, a slight lean forward when they are making an important point. These small physical signals are incredibly powerful. They are the physical manifestation of listening. They close the physical and psychological distance between you and the other person, creating a space of focused attention where real connection can happen. The third skill is the core of being a detective. Listen for what's not said. People rarely say exactly what they mean in plain, simple language, especially when the topic is emotional or difficult. The real message is often hidden beneath the surface of the words. It's in the tone of voice, the pace of their speech, the emotions they are trying to manage. A detective listens for these clues. Imagine a team member, Mark, comes to you and says, in a flat tone, "Yeah, the project is on track, we should hit the deadline." A surface-level listener would hear those words and think, "Great, everything is fine," and move on. But a detective listener would notice the clues. They'd notice the flat tone, the lack of enthusiasm, the use of the word should, which is much less certain than will. The detective hears the words, but they are listening for the feeling. Is it confidence or is it resignation? Is it excitement or is it anxiety? To do this, you have to tune your ears to the emotional frequency of the conversation. Pay attention to changes in vocal tone. Does their voice get higher or lower, faster or slower? Pay attention to their word choices. Did they say it was challenging or did they say it was a nightmare? These words reveal their emotional state. Most importantly, listen for the feelings. A great question to ask yourself while someone is speaking is, what emotion is this person feeling right now? This shifts your focus from the literal content to the emotional subtext. When you can identify the emotion, you can address the real issue. You could say to Mark, "I hear you say that we should hit the deadline, but I'm sensing some hesitation. Is there something about this project that's worrying you?" This question opens the door to the real conversation. It shows that you heard not just his words, but you heard him. This is the kind of listening that solves problems before they explode. The fourth skill is to move from passive listening to active listening by using the art of clarifying questions. Once you've been silent, observed the non-verbals, and listened for the emotion, it's time to engage. But you must engage with curiosity, not judgment. The goal of your questions should not be to trap the person, to win an argument, or to steer them to your solution. The goal is to deepen your own understanding. There is a world of difference between a question that closes down a conversation and a question that opens it up. Judgmental, closed-ended questions often start with why. Why did you do it that way? This question immediately puts the other person on the defensive. They feel they have to justify their actions. Curious, open-ended questions invite exploration. They often start with what or how instead of why did you do it that way? Try, can you walk me through your thought process on this, or what were the factors you were considering when you made that decision? See the difference? The first is an interrogation. The second is a collaboration. Build a mental toolkit of powerful, open-ended questions. Here are a few to get you started. Tell me more about that. What was the most challenging part of that for you? How did that impact you? What would be the ideal outcome here? What does success look like in this situation? These questions are like keys. They unlock deeper levels of insight and understanding. They show the other person that you are genuinely interested in their perspective. They also force the other person to clarify their own thinking. Often, people don't fully understand their own position until they are asked to articulate it in response to a good question. The fifth and final skill ties everything together. It's called the playback. This is the simple but incredibly effective technique of paraphrasing what you heard back to the other person to confirm your understanding. It's a final check to ensure that the message sent was the message received. The playback is not about repeating their words like a parrot. It's about summarizing the essence of what you heard, both the content and the feeling, in your own words. A good playback often starts with one of these phrases, "So if I'm understanding you correctly," or "What I'm hearing is," or "It sounds like you're feeling." For example, after listening to a frustrated colleague, you might say, "Okay, let me make sure I've got this. It sounds like you're feeling incredibly frustrated because you've put in a lot of extra hours to get this report done, but you feel like your contribution hasn't been acknowledged. Is that about right?" This simple act is a game changer. It does three things simultaneously. One, it makes the other person feel deeply and completely heard and validated. Their shoulders will literally relax. You can see the relief on their face. Two, it gives them a chance to correct any misunderstanding. They might say, "Well, it's not that it wasn't acknowledged. It's that the data I provided was used incorrectly." This is a crucial clarification that you would have missed otherwise. And three, it stops the cycle of miscommunication before it starts. Once you have both agreed on the nature of the problem or the feeling, you can then move forward together to find a solution from a place of shared reality. Becoming a detective listener is a lifelong practice. You will not be perfect at it overnight. You will catch yourself slipping back into the old habit of autobiographical listening. That's okay. The goal is progress, not perfection. But every time you choose to be silent, to be present, to listen for the feeling, to ask a curious question, and to play back what you heard, you are laying another plank on the bridge of connection. You are giving someone the gift of your full attention, and in doing so you are earning their trust. This is the first and most fundamental act of leadership. Now that we have established listening as the foundation for understanding, we can move to the next level: empathy. If listening is about hearing what someone is experiencing, empathy is about trying to feel what they are experiencing. This brings us to our second section, the empathy switch, see through their eyes. Empathy is one of the most misunderstood concepts in leadership. Many people mistake it for sympathy. Sympathy is feeling for someone. It's looking down from a position of distance and saying, "Oh, you poor thing, that must be terrible." Sympathy often creates a dynamic of pity, which can make the other person feel small. Empathy is completely different. Empathy is feeling with someone. It is the effort to climb down into the hole with them, not to fix their problem, but to simply say, "I'm here with you. I can imagine this is really hard." Empathy is about connection, not pity. It's about perspective taking. It's the ability to momentarily remove your own lens and try to see the world through the eyes of another. This skill is not a soft skill. It is a strategic necessity for any leader. Why? Because empathy is the engine of trust. When people feel that you are genuinely trying to understand their perspective, even if you don't agree with it, their defenses come down. They become more open, more honest, and more willing to collaborate. A study conducted by Google, called Project Aristotle, sought to identify the key ingredients of their most successful, high-performing teams. After years of analyzing data, the number one factor they found was not the intelligence of the team members or the leadership style of the manager. It was a concept called psychological safety. This is a shared belief held by members of a team that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. It's a sense that you won't be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. And what is the root of psychological safety? Empathy. It is the leader's ability to create a culture where people feel seen, heard, and understood as human beings. An empathetic leader can de-escalate conflict, motivate their team on a deeper level, and unlock a level of creativity and discretionary effort that fear-based or authority-based leadership can never touch. People will work for a paycheck. They will work harder for a charismatic boss. But they will walk through fire for a leader who they believe truly understands and cares about them. So how do we cultivate this superpower? How do we learn to intentionally flip the empathy switch? Here are 4 practical strategies. The first strategy is a preemptive mental exercise, the perspective shift question. Our brains are naturally egocentric. We see the world from our own point of view. It's our default setting. To be empathetic, we have to consciously override this setting. The best time to do this is before an important conversation, especially one that you anticipate might be difficult. Before you go into a meeting to give critical feedback, before you sit down with your partner to discuss a sensitive topic, before you address your team about a change they might not like, I want you to pause. Take 5 minutes and ask yourself this one question. What might this situation look like from their side of the table? Don't just think about it fleetingly. Take out a piece of paper and actually write down at least 3 possible answers. What pressures might they be under that I'm not aware of? What are their primary goals or fears in this situation? What past experiences might be influencing how they are reacting? Forcing yourself to articulate their potential perspective primes your brain for empathy. It moves you from a place of adversarial certainty, I am right and they are wrong, to a place of curious exploration. We see this differently and I want to understand why. You will walk into that conversation with a completely different energy. You will be less reactive, a better listener, and far more likely to find a constructive path forward. This single habit can transform your most difficult conversations. The second strategy is to acknowledge feelings before facts. When people are in a state of high emotion, anger, frustration, fear, their ability to process logical information is severely diminished. The emotional part of their brain, the amygdala, has hijacked the rational part, the prefrontal cortex. If you try to argue with facts and logic when someone is in this state, you will fail. It's like trying to reason with a guard dog that is barking. Your first job is to calm the guard dog, and you do that by validating the emotion. This is a simple two-step verbal technique. The first step is to name the emotion you are sensing. It sounds like you're incredibly frustrated. I can see that you're really worried about this. It seems like you feel disrespected. The second step is to pause and let that statement land. You are not agreeing with their story. You are not saying they are right. You are simply holding up a mirror to their emotional state. You are saying, "I see you." The effect of this is almost magical. When a person's feelings are acknowledged, their emotional brain starts to calm down. They feel seen. The guard dog stops barking. Only then can you begin to address the facts of the situation. Remember this rule: connect with the human, then solve the problem. Acknowledging the emotion is how you connect with the human. The third strategy might seem unusual, but it is backed by compelling science. Read more fiction. Yes, reading novels. A series of studies published in the journal Science found that reading literary fiction, as opposed to popular fiction or non-fiction, significantly improved participants' scores on tests that measure empathy, social perception, and emotional intelligence. Why? Because literary fiction forces you to do the work of empathy. It requires you to step into the inner world of characters who are different from you, to understand their motivations, their struggles, and their view of the world. It's a workout for your empathy muscle. It trains your brain to consider the hidden complexities, the subtle emotions, and the different perspectives that drive human behavior. So, if you want to be a more empathetic leader, turn off the business books for a while and pick up a great novel. Get lost in someone else's story. It is one of the most enjoyable and effective forms of empathy training there is. The fourth and final strategy is to get curious about people's stories. The people you lead are not job titles. They are not resources. They are human beings, each with a rich, complex, and unique life story. The more you know about that story, the harder it is to be impatient, judgmental, or unempathetic toward them. Make a conscious effort to learn about the people around you beyond the context of your work. Ask them about their weekend, not just as a pleasantry, but because you are genuinely curious. Ask them where they grew up, what their first job was, what they are passionate about outside of work. Listen to their answers. Remember the details. When you learn that the quiet person in accounting is a competitive rock climber on the weekends, or that the person in customer service is caring for an elderly parent at home, it changes how you see them. It adds depth and color to their character. It humanizes them. This creates a reservoir of goodwill and understanding that you can draw upon when things get tough. A leader who knows their people's stories is a leader who can lead with compassion and wisdom. Empathy is not about having all the answers. It's about being willing to ask the questions and listen to the stories. It is the switch that illuminates the humanity in others, and in doing so, illuminates the best leader within yourself. We have now covered the receptive side of connection, deep listening and empathetic understanding. But a bridge must be built from two sides. You also have to send signals across the gap. You have to speak. This brings us to the third and final section of our chapter on connection. Speak to be understood. The goal of a leader's communication is not to sound intelligent, to use impressive vocabulary, or to demonstrate their expertise. The sole goal is clarity. Your message is only successful if the other person receives it, understands it, and knows what to do with it. Anything else is just noise. One of the biggest barriers to clear communication is a cognitive bias known as the curse of knowledge. Once we know something, it becomes very difficult for us to imagine what it was like to not know it. We unconsciously assume that the people we are talking to have the same background, context, and understanding that we do. We use acronyms, jargon, and technical terms that are crystal clear to us, but are complete gibberish to our audience. This creates a wall of confusion and intimidation. It makes people feel stupid, and people who feel stupid do not feel inspired. Inspirational leaders are masters of simplicity. They can take a complex idea and distill it down to its essential, understandable core. They choose clarity over complexity every single time. They understand that clarity is a form of kindness and respect. It respects the listener's time and attention. It eliminates ambiguity, which is the root of so much wasted effort and conflict. So, how can we fight the curse of knowledge and learn to speak with powerful, motivating clarity? There are 4 key practices. First, use the grandma test. Before you send an important email, give a presentation, or explain a new process, take a moment and ask yourself this question. Could I explain this to my grandmother in a way that she would understand and care about? If your grandmother happens to be a nuclear physicist, then pick another intelligent but non-expert relative. This mental check forces you to strip away the jargon and the unnecessary complexity. It forces you to find the simple, human core of your message. If you can't explain your business strategy in a way that your grandma would get, you probably don't understand it as well as you think you do. Simplicity is not a sign of a simple mind. It is a sign of deep understanding. Albert Einstein famously said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." Strive for that level of simple, profound clarity. Second, practice the principle of front-loading your message. In journalism, this is called burying the lead. It's when a news story starts with a lot of background information and only gets to the main point in the 3rd or 4th paragraph. We do this all the time in our professional communication. We write long emails that meander through context and history before finally revealing the one action we need the person to take. This wastes time and creates confusion. The solution is to adopt the military principle of bluff, bottom line up front. Start with the most important piece of information. Your first sentence should deliver the core message. The project deadline has been moved to this Friday, October 26th. Then, after you have delivered the bottom line, you can provide the necessary context and background. We've made this decision for 2 key reasons. This structure respects the listener's intelligence and their time. They immediately know what's most important, and they can choose how much of the background detail they need to absorb. Third, use analogies and metaphors to build mental bridges. When you are introducing a new or complex idea, your listener's brain is searching for a place to file it. It's trying to connect this new information to something it already understands. You can make this process much easier for them by providing a bridge in the form of an analogy or a metaphor. A well-chosen metaphor can make an abstract concept feel concrete and intuitive. For example, trying to explain a complex new software platform is difficult, but if you say, "I want you to think of this new platform as the central hub of a wheel, all of our other tools like sales, marketing, and support will be the spokes that connect to it, sharing information back and forth through the hub," you have just given your team a powerful visual image that they can grasp instantly. Great leaders are great communicators, and great communicators have a rich toolkit of analogies and metaphors to make the complex simple and the unfamiliar familiar. Fourth and finally, you must check for understanding. After you have delivered your message, it's tempting to end with the lazy question, "Any questions?" The problem is this question is often met with silence. People might not ask questions because they don't want to appear stupid, they haven't fully processed what you've said, or they don't even know what to ask. As a leader, it is your responsibility to ensure your message has been understood. You need to use more effective ways to check. Instead of the passive, "Any questions?" try a more active approach. You could say, "To make sure we're all on the same page, what is your understanding of our next steps?" Or, "Just so I know I was clear, could one of you tell me back in your own words what the main goal is here?" This isn't a test of them, it's a test of you and the clarity of your communication. It creates a safe way for people to reveal any confusion, and it gives you an opportunity to clarify your message before people walk away and start working on the wrong thing. The art of connection is the art of leadership. It is the conscious, daily practice of closing the distance between yourself and others. It begins with the profound respect of deep listening. It is deepened by the compassionate act of empathy. And it is completed by the generous act of speaking with clarity. These are not gifts you are born with. They are muscles you must choose to build. Every conversation is a chance to practice. Every interaction is an opportunity to strengthen the bridge. And when you build these bridges of connection, You create the pathways along which trust, loyalty, and true inspiration can travel. Chapter 3. The Spark of Inspiration. Lighting the Fire. Once you have built a strong internal foundation and have learned to forge genuine connections with others, you are ready for the next most dynamic phase of leadership. Lighting the fire of inspiration. This is where leadership transitions from managing tasks to mobilizing hearts and minds. There is a critical difference between motivation and inspiration. Motivation is external. It is the carrot and the stick. You can motivate people with bonuses, promotions, or the fear of negative consequences. Motivation gets people to do what they are told to do. It secures compliance. But inspiration is different. Inspiration is internal. It is a fire that is lit within a person. An inspired person doesn't do something because they have to. They do it because they want to. They are connected to a purpose that is larger than their own self-interest. Inspiration secures not just compliance, but commitment, creativity, and passion. A motivated team might meet their sales quota. An inspired team will redefine what is possible for the entire industry. A motivated employee will stay late when you ask them to. An inspired employee will stay late because they are obsessed with solving a problem that could change the world. As a leader, your job is not just to hand out carrots and wave sticks. Your job is to be a fire starter. Your role is to connect people to a sense of purpose so compelling that it fuels them through challenges and setbacks. This is not about giving a few rah-rah speeches. It is a disciplined, intentional process. This chapter will teach you the 3 core disciplines of inspirational leadership. First, we will uncover the power of a shared why, learning how to define and communicate a purpose that transcends daily tasks. Second, we will explore why the story is stronger than the statistic, and you will learn how to use the ancient art of narrative to make your purpose emotional, memorable, and actionable. And third, we will confront the most important discipline of all, to be the living proof, because the most powerful inspiration is not what you say, but what you do. Let's begin by discovering the fuel for the fire, the power of why. The first section is the power of a shared why. Every single organization, every team, every project on the planet knows what they do. Some know how they do it, the processes and systems that make them different or better, but very few know with crystal clarity why they do what they do. And I don't mean why they do it to make a profit. Profit is a result. It's an outcome. A true why is a purpose, a cause, or a belief. It is the very reason your team or organization exists. It's the answer to the question, what is the impact we want to have on the world? Why should anyone care about what we do? The author and speaker Simon Sinek brilliantly codified this idea in his concept of the golden circle. He found that while most organizations communicate from the outside in, from what to how to why, the most inspiring and successful leaders and organizations all communicate from the inside out. They start with why. Think about it. A company that communicates from the outside in sounds like this. We make great computers, the what. They're beautifully designed and easy to use, the how. Want to buy one? It's a perfectly reasonable message, but it's not very inspiring. An inside-out message, the kind that Apple actually used, sounds like this. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently, the WHY. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly, the how. We just happen to make great computers, the what. Want to buy one? See the difference? The first message is a product description. The second is a declaration of purpose. It speaks directly to the part of our brain that is responsible for feelings, trust, and decision-making. It doesn't just sell a product, it sells an identity. It allows people to feel like they are part of a movement. This principle doesn't just apply to billion-dollar companies. It applies to a 5-person team working on a small project. A team that only knows its what. We have to complete this software update by the end of the quarter. We'll work with diligence. But a team that is connected to its why. The reason we are doing this update is to help thousands of small business owners save an extra hour every week, giving them more time to spend with their families. We'll work with passion. A shared why is the glue that holds a team together when things get tough. It provides context for the mundane tasks and meaning for the difficult struggles. It is the answer to the question, why does this matter? When people have a clear and compelling answer to that question, their resilience, creativity, and engagement skyrocket. A famous story illustrates this perfectly. A person walks up to two different stonemasons and asks them what they are doing. The first stonemason says, with a sigh, "I'm cutting this stone into a block." The second stonemason, however, looks up with a gleam in his eye and says, "I'm building a cathedral." Both are doing the exact same task, the what, but the second stonemason is connected to the why. Who do you think is more likely to show up on Monday morning with energy and purpose? Who is more likely to notice a flaw in the stone and take the extra time to fix it? The leader's job is to ensure that everyone on the team sees themselves as a cathedral builder, not just a stone cutter. So, how do you do this? How do you find and articulate a compelling why for your team? It is a four-step process. Step 1 is to find your own why first. This is a critical first step that many leaders skip. You cannot authentically communicate a purpose that you do not personally feel. This connects directly back to the work we did in Chapter 1. Look at your own core values. Why do you do what you do? What is the impact that gets you out of bed in the morning? Is it to create beauty, to empower others, to solve complex problems, to bring order to chaos? Before you can craft a why for your team, you must be clear on your own. Your personal passion will be the spark that lights the larger fire. People will be inspired not just by the purpose itself, but by the sincerity and conviction with which you communicate it. Step 2 is to craft a vision statement, not a mission statement. These two things are often confused, but they are very different. A mission statement is about the what and the how. It describes what the organization does, for whom, and what makes it unique. For example, a mission statement might be, to provide our customers with the highest quality coffee at a reasonable price. A vision statement, on the other hand, is all about the why. It is a picture of the future. It describes the world as it would exist if you were completely successful in your purpose. It is aspirational, emotional, and big. A vision statement for that same coffee company might be, to be a third place between work and home, where every person can find a moment of human connection and belonging. That is a cathedral. High-quality coffee is just the stone. To craft your team's vision, gather them together. Ask them big questions. If we were wildly successful, what would our community, our industry, or our customers say about us? What is the single biggest problem we are trying to solve for people? What is the better future we are working to create? Your goal is to distill these ideas into a single sentence that is simple, memorable, and inspiring. It should be a sentence that you can put up on the wall, a sentence that can serve as a guiding star for every decision the team makes. Step 3 is the most important and ongoing job of a leader. Connect the daily what to the grand why. It is not enough to have a beautiful vision statement hanging on the wall. You have to make it live and breathe in the daily work of your team. This is about being a translator of meaning. Your job is to constantly draw a clear, bright line between the small, sometimes tedious tasks that people are doing and the larger, inspiring purpose you have all committed to. This happens in the small daily moments. When giving feedback, don't just talk about the metrics, talk about the impact. Instead of saying, your customer satisfaction score went up by 5%, good job, say, your customer satisfaction score went up by 5%. This means that 50 more people this month had an experience with us that made their day a little bit easier and better. That is a direct result of the empathy you showed on those calls. That is how we build a reputation for truly caring about people. When someone is working on what seems like a boring spreadsheet, help them see the cathedral. I know this data analysis is a grind, but the insights we pull from this will help us understand our users on a deeper level, so we can build a product that genuinely solves their problems and doesn't waste their time. Your attention to detail here is the foundation of that entire effort. This is the art of leadership, connecting the mundane to the meaningful. Do this consistently, and you will transform your team's relationship with their work. Step 4 is to make the why visible. Your purpose should not be a secret. It should be a constant, visible presence. Start your weekly team meetings with a purpose minute. Share a story from a customer or a colleague that illustrates your vision in action. When you celebrate wins, don't just celebrate the financial result. Celebrate the win as a step toward achieving your vision. When you have to make a tough decision, explain your reasoning by grounding it in your shared purpose. This is a hard choice, but we are making this change because it aligns with our core purpose of ensuring our product is as simple and accessible as possible for our users. The more you talk about, celebrate, and make decisions through the lens of your why, the more real and powerful it will become. It will transform from a nice idea into the living, beating heart of your team. A shared purpose is the ultimate source of inspiration. It gives people a reason to care, a reason to persevere, and a reason to bring the very best of themselves to work every single day. A powerful why gives you the destination, but it's an abstract concept. To make that destination feel real, to make people feel the importance of the journey, you need a more powerful vehicle than abstract ideas. You need stories. This brings us to our second section. The story is stronger than the statistic. The human brain is not a computer. We are not wired to be moved by spreadsheets, data points, or bulleted lists. We are wired for narrative. For tens of thousands of years, before the written word, storytelling was the primary way that humans passed on knowledge, culture, values, and warnings. It is baked into our DNA. Modern neuroscience is now showing us exactly why stories are so powerful. When we are presented with facts and figures, only the language processing centers of our brain are activated. We process the information, we analyze it, and we might store it. But when we are told a story, something different happens. Our brain reacts as if we are experiencing the story ourselves. If someone describes the delicious taste of a fresh-baked cookie, our sensory cortex lights up. If they describe a character running, our motor cortex activates. This phenomenon is called neural coupling. The storyteller's brain and the listener's brain actually synchronize. The listener experiences the same brain activity as the speaker. This is why a great story doesn't just convey information, it makes us feel something. And it is that feeling that leads to memory, belief, and action. As a leader, if you are only communicating with statistics and data, you are fighting with one hand tied behind your back. You are speaking to your team's brain, but you are ignoring their heart. A statistic like, "We have a 92% customer satisfaction rate," is good information. But a story about one of those customers, let's call her Mrs. Davis, an elderly woman who was struggling with the product until one of your team members spent an hour patiently walking her through it. A story that ends with her saying, "You have no idea how much this means to me. I felt so lost and you made me feel capable again." That story is 100 times more powerful than the statistic. The statistic informs, but the story inspires. It gives a human face to the why. It makes the purpose of your work tangible and emotional. So how do you become an effective storyteller as a leader? You don't need to be a great novelist. You just need to learn a few simple structures and practices. First, you need to understand the 3 basic plots that leaders can use. Most effective leadership stories fall into one of 3 simple categories. Knowing these plots gives you a template to work with. The first is the challenge plot. This is the classic underdog story. It features a protagonist who faces a seemingly insurmountable obstacle and through perseverance, cleverness, or courage, finds a way to succeed. You can use this plot to inspire resilience and creativity in your team. Tell a story about a time the company was small and facing a huge competitor, but found an innovative way to win. Or tell a personal story about a time you failed at something, but refused to give up and eventually succeeded. These stories say, we can overcome hard things. The second is the connection plot. This is a story about people who bridge a gap to come together. It could be a story about 2 different departments that were always in conflict, but found a way to collaborate on a project and achieved amazing results. It could be a story about a diverse group of people who put aside their differences to work toward a common goal. You use this plot to inspire teamwork and break down silos. These stories say, we are stronger together. The third is the creativity plot. This is a story about a breakthrough moment, a new way of looking at a problem, or a moment of sudden insight. It could be the story of how a brilliant idea for a new product came from an unexpected source, like an intern or a customer complaint. You use this plot to inspire innovation and to encourage people to think differently. These stories say good ideas can come from anywhere, so keep your eyes open. Second, you need to build a story library. Great storytellers don't just make up stories on the spot. They are collectors. They are always on the lookout for moments and experiences that can be crafted into a story to teach a lesson or inspire an emotion. I want you to start doing this intentionally. Create a document or a notebook and label it My Story Library. Every week, make it a goal to add one new story. Where do you find them? Everywhere. A story from a conversation with a customer. An observation of a team member going above and beyond. A story from your own life, even from your childhood, that taught you an important lesson. A story you read in a book or an article that perfectly illustrates a value you want to instill in your team. Actively look for these moments. When you find one, write it down. Don't worry about making it perfect. Just capture the key details. Over time, you will build a powerful arsenal of narratives that you can draw upon in meetings, in one-on-ones, and in presentations. Third, use a simple story formula to structure your narratives. A good story doesn't need to be long or complicated. It just needs a few key ingredients. Here is a simple 5-part formula you can use. 1. The setting. Quickly establish who, where, and when. Last Tuesday, I was on a support call with a customer named John from Ohio. 2. The problem. What was the challenge or the conflict? He was incredibly frustrated because his shipment was late and he was going to miss a critical deadline for his own business. 3. The action. What happened? What was the turning point? Instead of just giving him the tracking number, our support rep, Maria, took ownership. She spent the next hour on the phone with the shipping company, found the package, and arranged for a special courier to get it to him that same day. 4. The resolution. What was the outcome? John got his package on time. He later wrote an email saying that in 20 years of business, he had never experienced that level of customer care. 5. The moral. This is the most important part for a leader. You must connect the story back to the lesson you want to teach. That is what it looks like to live our value of extreme ownership. Maria didn't just solve a problem, she saved another person's business. That is the impact we have. This simple formula turns a random anecdote into a powerful teaching tool. Finally, remember that the most powerful stories are not about you, the leader, being the hero. The most powerful stories you can tell are the ones where you make your team members or your customers the heroes. When you tell a story that highlights the great work of someone on your team, you do 2 things. You recognize and validate that person in a very public and powerful way, and you provide a clear role model for everyone else to follow. You're not just saying, "This is what I expect." You're saying, "Look at the amazing things we are capable of. Look at the hero among us." That is how you use stories to shape a culture and inspire a team to greatness. Stop presenting dry data and start telling human stories. One makes you an analyst, the other makes you a leader. You can have the most compelling why in the world, you can be the most gifted storyteller, but if your own actions contradict the message you are trying to send, it all counts for nothing. In fact, it becomes worse than nothing. It becomes a source of cynicism and distrust. This brings us to the third and most crucial pillar of inspiration. You must be the living proof. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "Who you are speaks so loudly I can't hear what you're saying." This is the ultimate truth of leadership. Your team is not listening to your speeches as much as they are watching your feet. They are watching where you spend your time. They are watching how you treat people, especially when you are under pressure. They are watching what you tolerate and what you celebrate. Your behavior is the real message. Your actions are the real sermon. Any gap between your stated values and your actual behavior is a credibility canyon. And in that canyon, all of your inspirational power goes to die. Authenticity is the currency of inspiration. People are not inspired by perfect leaders. They are inspired by real human leaders who are genuinely striving to live by the principles they espouse. When your team sees you living the values you preach, especially when it's difficult, It does more to inspire them than 1,000 motivational posters ever could. It gives them the courage and the permission to do the same. So, how do you ensure you are being the living proof? It comes down to 3 concrete practices. First, you must conduct a calendar audit. Your calendar does not lie. It is a perfect, unbiased record of what you truly value. You might say that you value innovation, but if your calendar is filled with back-to-back administrative meetings and no time is blocked out for deep thinking or brainstorming, then you don't really value innovation. You value administration. You might say that your people are your most important asset, but if you consistently cancel your one-on-one meetings with your team members to deal with more urgent issues, your actions are saying that your people are, in fact, your most expendable asset. I want you to perform an honest audit of your calendar for the past month. Get a highlighter and mark the time you spent in different categories. How much time was spent on activities that directly support your team's why? How much time was spent on developing your people? How much time was spent on the values you claim are most important? The results might be shocking. Your calendar is a moral document. If you want to be the living proof, you must start by aligning your time with your values. If innovation is a priority, schedule thinking time into your calendar and protect it fiercely. If your people are a priority, make your one-on-one meetings the most sacred appointments in your week, never to be cancelled. Your calendar is the most powerful messaging tool you have. Use it to send the right message. Second, you must consciously model the behavior you want to see. You are the cultural role model for your team, whether you choose to be or not. They will take their cues from you. Therefore, you must be hyper-aware of the behaviors you are demonstrating. If you want a culture of punctuality, you must always be 5 minutes early. If you want a culture of open and honest feedback, you must be the first one to ask for feedback on your own performance. And you must receive it with grace and gratitude, not defensiveness. If you want a culture where people take calculated risks, they must see you try things that might not work. And more importantly, they must see how you react when you fail. If you react with blame and anger, you will teach them to never take a risk again. But if you react with curiosity and a focus on learning, well, that didn't work as planned. What can we learn from this so we can do better next time? You will create the psychological safety that is essential for innovation. Whatever you want to see more of in your team, collaboration, accountability, optimism, focus, you must be the most visible and consistent example of it yourself. Third, and perhaps most powerfully, you must share your struggle. One of the biggest mistakes leaders make is thinking they need to project an image of perfection. They believe they must have all the answers and never show any weakness. This doesn't inspire people, it intimidates them and creates distance. It makes the standard feel unattainable. Vulnerability, on the other hand, is a superpower of connection and inspiration. When you are willing to share your own struggles, you don't look weak, you look human. This doesn't mean you should complain or burden your team with your anxieties. It means being honest about the challenges. It means being willing to say things like, "This new strategy is going to be challenging for all of us, and honestly, it's a little daunting for me too. But I believe in our ability to figure it out together." Or, "I'm working on becoming a better listener. I know I have a tendency to interrupt, and I want you to call me out on it when I do." This kind of authentic sharing does 2 things. It makes you more relatable, which builds trust, and it makes your own example feel more achievable. When they see that you are also a work in progress, it inspires them to engage in their own journey of growth. They see that leadership is not about being flawless, but about having the courage to grow in public. Lighting the fire of inspiration is the culmination of your leadership journey. It begins by uniting your team under the banner of a shared, meaningful why. You then breathe life into that why by telling powerful human stories that connect to the heart, not just the head. And finally, and most critically, you anchor it all in the undeniable truth of your own actions. You become the living, breathing proof that the purpose is real, the journey is worthwhile, and the challenge can be met. You don't just point the way, you walk the path. That is how you move beyond managing and start truly leading. That is how you light a fire that can warm a team, illuminate a path, and change the world. Chapter 4. Navigating the Storm, the Leader's Mettle. We have spent a great deal of time talking about the sunny days of leadership. We have discussed how to build your internal values, how to connect deeply with people, and how to inspire them with a compelling vision of the future. These are the skills you need when the wind is at your back and the seas are calm. But any sailor will tell you that you cannot judge a captain by how they stand at the wheel on a clear, sunny day. You judge a captain by how they stand when the sky turns black, the waves rise to the height of the mast, and the ship begins to creak under the pressure. Leadership is easy when things are going well. Everyone is happy, profits are up, and morale is high. In those moments, it feels good to be in charge. But true leadership, the kind that defines a career and cements a legacy, is forged in the fire of adversity. It is determined by how you show up when everything is going wrong. The storm is inevitable. No matter how good your plan is, no matter how talented your team is, and no matter how noble your purpose is, you will face crises. You will face market crashes, lost clients, product failures, interpersonal conflicts, and moments of profound self-doubt. These are not signs that you are doing a bad job. They are simply the price of admission for doing anything meaningful. The mediocre do not face great storms because they never leave the safety of the harbor. The fact that you are facing a storm means you are out in the deep water, trying to go somewhere worth going. This chapter is your survival guide for those moments. It is about the grit, the courage, and the wisdom required to navigate the chaos. We will explore 3 critical areas where a leader's mettle is tested. First, we will learn to embrace productive conflict, transforming the friction between people into fuel for better ideas. Second, we will learn that failure is data, not a dead end, and discover how to build a culture where mistakes make you smarter, not weaker. And finally, we will discuss the lonely burden of making the hard decisions and how to act with conviction when the path ahead is shrouded in fog. Let us begin with the storm that happens inside the ship, conflict. The first section is embrace productive conflict. Most of us are terrified of conflict. We are biologically wired to avoid it. In our evolutionary past, conflict within the tribe meant a risk of injury or expulsion, which meant death. So we have a deep primal instinct to smooth things over, to keep the peace, and to nod in agreement, even when we think something is a terrible idea. In the workplace, we call this professionalism or being a team player, but in reality, it is often a dangerous form of artificial harmony. A team that never argues is a team that is not thinking. If everyone in the room agrees, then half of the people in the room are unnecessary. Great leaders understand that conflict is not the enemy of a good team. It is the raw material of excellence. Imagine you are a sculptor. You cannot create a masterpiece without friction. You have to strike the chisel against the stone. You have to sand the rough edges. That process creates heat, it creates dust, and it creates noise. But it is the only way to reveal the art. The same is true for ideas. An idea that has never been challenged, never been poked at, never been debated, is a weak idea. It hasn't been tested. Productive conflict is the process of testing ideas to make them stronger. It is the ability to disagree without being disagreeable. The problem is that most of us don't know how to distinguish between constructive conflict and destructive conflict. Destructive conflict is personal. It attacks the person. It says, "You are an idiot for thinking that." It is driven by ego, pride, and a desire to win. This destroys trust and creates a toxic environment. Constructive conflict is ideological. It attacks the concept. It says, "I don't think that strategy will work because the data suggests otherwise." It is driven by a shared desire to find the best possible answer. As a leader, your job is to mine for this kind of conflict. You have to go looking for it. You have to stop being a peacekeeper and start being a truth seeker. How do you do this practically? You have to give your team permission to fight. You have to explicitly tell them that you expect and demand debate. When you're in a meeting and you propose an idea, and everyone just nods, you should not feel satisfied, you should feel worried. In that moment, stop the meeting. Look around the room and say, "I see a lot of nodding, but I know this idea isn't perfect. I want someone to tell me why this might fail. Who can see the holes in this plan?" You are inviting them to challenge you. You are making it safe to disagree. You are telling them that their value lies not in their compliance, but in their critical thinking. There is a powerful tool you can use called mining for conflict. When you see two people on your team who clearly disagree but are holding back, perhaps communicating through passive-aggressive comments or rolling their eyes, call it out. Do it gently, but do it. Say, "Sarah, John, I sense that you two have different perspectives on this. I want to hear them. Sarah, walk us through your concern. John, I want you to listen and then respond to the idea, not the person. By bringing the conflict into the light, you normalize it. You turn it from a scary hidden monster into a practical tool for problem solving. However, you must also set the rules of engagement. The most important rule is that once a decision is made, the debate ends. This is the principle of disagree and commit. Intel, the famous technology company, used this principle to great effect. It means that during the decision-making process, you have a duty to argue your point passionately. You have a duty to thrash it out. But once the leader has heard all the arguments and made a decision, even if it wasn't the one you wanted, you must commit to it 100%. You cannot walk out of the room and say to your colleagues, "Well, I told them it wouldn't work." That is sabotage. A true professional argues inside the room and supports outside the room. This balance of fierce debate and unified action is the hallmark of a high-performing team. It requires a leader who is secure enough to be challenged and strong enough to unite the team once the gavel falls. Now, what happens when that decision turns out to be wrong? What happens when the plan fails? This brings us to the second section. Failure is data, not a dead end. In many organizations, failure is treated like a virus. If a project fails, everyone runs for cover. They hide the evidence, they shift the blame, and they distance themselves from the wreckage. This is a tragedy, because failure is the most information-rich data stream you will ever have. Success is a terrible teacher. When you succeed, you often don't know why. Was it your brilliant strategy? Was it luck? Was it a weak competitor? You just pat yourself on the back and keep going. But when you fail, reality is shouting at you. It is telling you exactly where your model of the world was wrong. It is revealing the hidden flaws in your system. If you punish failure, you are throwing away that precious data. You are ensuring that you will make the same mistake again. To lead through the storm, you must fundamentally reframe your relationship with failure. You must look to the aviation industry. Aviation is incredibly safe because they have a relentless, obsessive culture of learning from failure. Every time a plane crashes, there is a massive investigation. They don't just look for who to blame, they look for the root cause. Was it a mechanical part? Was it a training issue? Was it a communication breakdown? Once they find the cause, they change the system. They update the manuals, they redesign the part, they change the training. As a result, every crash makes the next flight safer for everyone. This is called black box thinking, a concept popularized by Matthew Syed. As a leader, you need to build a black box culture in your team. You do this by conducting blameless post-mortems. When something goes wrong, you gather the team. The first thing you say is, "We are not here to hang anyone. We are here to understand what happened so we can build a better system." This removes the fear. If people are afraid of losing their jobs, they will lie. They will hide their mistakes. And if they hide their mistakes, you cannot learn from them. In a blameless post-mortem, you ask a specific set of questions, not who messed up, but what part of the process broke down? Did we have the right information? Did we have the right resources? Was the timeline realistic? You must also lead by example. You must be the chief failure officer. When you make a mistake, own it publicly. Stand in front of your team and say, "I made a bad call on that marketing campaign. I misread the data. Here is what I learned, and here is how I'm going to adjust my thinking for the next time." When the leader admits to being fallible, it releases a pressure valve for the whole organization. It signals that it is safe to be human. It signals that the goal is not perfection, but growth. Consider the story of Thomas Edison. We all know the famous line about him not failing, but finding 10,000 ways that didn't work. But think about the mindset required to do that. To fail 10,000 times and still show up to the lab the next morning requires a fundamental belief that the failure is moving you forward, not holding you back. It requires you to see failure not as a judgment on your character, but as a necessary step in the scientific process of discovery. Innovation is simply a series of failures that you learn from until you arrive at the solution. If you want your team to innovate, you must lower the cost of failure. You must celebrate the smart failure, the experiment that didn't work, but taught you something valuable. Navigating the storm isn't about avoiding the waves, it's about learning how to surf them. But sometimes, the storm isn't about an external failure or a team conflict. Sometimes the storm is a lonely moment of choice. This brings us to the third section, making the hard decisions. There will come a time in your leadership journey when you have to make a call that will keep you awake at night. You will have to decide whether to lay off staff to save the company. You will have to decide whether to kill a project that people love but isn't making money. You will have to decide whether to fire a brilliant employee who is toxic to the culture. These are the moments that define you. Management is about following the rules. Leadership is about making the decisions that the rules don't cover. The hardest part of these decisions is the uncertainty. You will rarely have 100% of the information. You will be staring into the fog, and yet everyone is looking to you to point the way. The biggest trap leaders fall into here is analysis paralysis. They are so afraid of making the wrong choice that they make no choice at all. They wait for more data. They order another report. They hold another meeting. But in a storm, hesitation is death. A mediocre decision executed with speed and conviction is often better than a perfect decision made too late. General Colin Powell had a rule for this. He called it the 40-70 rule. He said that if you have less than 40% of the information, you shouldn't make a decision because you are just guessing. But if you wait until you have more than 70% of the information, you have waited too long. The opportunity has passed. You have to learn to operate in that sweet spot between 40 and 70%. You have to trust your gut, which is really just your accumulated experience and pattern recognition working faster than your conscious mind. When you have to make a hard decision, use a framework to clarify your thinking. Ask yourself, is this a reversible decision or an irreversible one? Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, calls these Type 1 and Type 2 decisions. Type 1 decisions are like walking through a one-way door. If you walk through, you can't come back. These decisions require deep thought, consultation, and caution. But Type 2 decisions are like walking through a two-way door. If you make the wrong choice, you can just turn around and come back. Most decisions in business and life are Type 2 decisions, yet we treat them like Type 1. We agonize over them as if they are life and death. If it's reversible, make the call quickly. If you are wrong, you will fix it. Speed matters. Once you have made the hard decision, the next challenge is communication. You must communicate it with clarity and compassion. Do not hide behind corporate jargon. Do not send an email when you should have a face-to-face conversation. If you have to deliver bad news, be direct. We are cutting this project. Then explain the why. We are cutting it because it is draining resources from our core mission, and if we continue, it puts the whole company at risk. People can handle bad news. They cannot handle ambiguity or dishonesty. They may not like the decision, but they will respect the leader who has the courage to make it and the integrity to explain it. Navigating the storm is exhausting. It requires emotional resilience, mental clarity, and a thick skin, but it is also the most rewarding part of leadership. It is in the storm that you find out who you are. It is in the storm that you earn the deep, unshakable loyalty of your team. And it is in the storm that you gain the wisdom that will allow you to leave a legacy that lasts. Because eventually, the storm will pass. The sun will come out. And when it does, you want to look back and know that you held the wheel steady. Chapter 5. The Ripple Effect. Your Lasting Legacy. We have arrived at the final chapter of our journey. We have looked inward at the self. We have looked outward at our connections. We have looked forward to our vision. And we have looked tough realities in the face. Now we must look beyond. We must look at what remains when we are gone. There is a somewhat morbid but clarifying question that every leader should ask themselves. If I got hit by a bus tomorrow, what would happen to my team? Would they collapse in chaos? Would they stop making decisions? Would the vision die with me? Or would they pause, mourn, and then pick up the torch and carry on, perhaps even better than before? If your team would collapse without you, you haven't been leading. You have been managing, you have been playing the role of the indispensable hero. And while that might stroke your ego, it is a failure of leadership. The ultimate goal of a leader is not to create followers. It is to create more leaders. It is to make yourself progressively unnecessary. It is to build something that does not depend on your presence to survive. This is the ripple effect. It is the impact that continues to expand outward, touching lives you will never meet, long after your direct influence has ended. In this final chapter, we will explore how to secure this legacy. We will discuss 3 final principles. First, we will learn to grow a garden, don't build a monument, shifting our focus from personal glory to the growth of others. Second, we will talk about the currency of trust, the account you must deposit into every single day if you want to have lasting influence. And third, we will cover the art of passing the torch, the final and most generous act of leadership. Let's start by looking at the difference between a monument and a garden. The first section is grow a garden, don't build a monument. Many people get into leadership positions because they want to be somebody. They want the title, the corner office, the recognition. They want to build a monument to their own greatness. They want to be the smartest person in the room. They want to be the one who saves the day. We call these hero leaders, and while they can achieve short-term results through sheer force of will, they leave a wake of destruction behind them. They suck the oxygen out of the room. Their teams become dependent, passive, and disengaged because they know the hero will just fix everything anyway. When the hero leaves, the monument crumbles because monuments are static. They are dead stone. They cannot adapt, they cannot grow, and they cannot survive without constant maintenance. True leadership is not about masonry. It is about biology. It is about gardening. A gardener doesn't make a plant grow. You cannot go into a garden, grab a tomato plant, and pull on it to make it taller. You will just rip it out of the ground. The gardener's job is to create the conditions for growth. They prepare the nutrient-rich soil. They ensure there is enough water and sunlight. They pull out the weeds that threaten to choke the life out of the plants. And then they step back. They watch. They trust the process. To leave a legacy, you must adopt the mindset of the gardener. You must see your primary role not as driving results, but as developing people. You need to look at the people on your team and see them not as they are, but as they could be. This is called the Pygmalion effect. Studies have shown that when a leader believes in the high potential of a team member, that team member's performance actually improves. Your belief acts as a self-fulfilling prophecy. This means you have to get good at delegation, but not just delegating tasks. That's just dumping work. You must delegate authority. You must delegate problems. Instead of telling your team exactly what to do, you say, "Here is the problem we need to solve. Here are the constraints. I trust you to figure out the best way to solve it. I'm here if you get stuck, but this is your ball. This is scary. They might fail. In fact, they probably will fail a few times. But remember what we learned in the last chapter. Failure is data. If you never let them struggle, they never build the muscles they need to lead. You have to be willing to suffer the temporary incompetence of your people while they are learning, for the sake of their long-term mastery. You also need to check your ego at the door. When your team succeeds, you must push them into the spotlight. You must say, "They did it." When the team fails, you must step into the spotlight and say, "I am responsible." This is the opposite of what human nature wants to do, but it is exactly what legacy building requires. Liz Wiseman wrote a wonderful book called Multipliers. She distinguishes between leaders who are diminishers, people who are so intelligent that they make everyone around them feel stupid, and multipliers, leaders who use their intelligence to amplify the smarts and capabilities of the people around them. A monument builder is a diminisher. A gardener is a multiplier. Ask yourself every day, did I make the people around me bigger or smaller today? The soil in which this garden grows is trust. This leads us to our second section, the currency of trust. We touched on trust in earlier chapters, but in the context of legacy, it takes on a new weight. Trust is the medium through which your influence travels. If people trust you, your words have weight. If they don't, your words are just wind. Trust is not a soft, fuzzy concept. It is a hard economic driver. In a high-trust culture, everything moves faster. You don't need excessive rules, double checks, and bureaucracy because you trust people to do the right thing. In a low-trust culture, everything is like moving through molasses. You have to verify everything, write everything down, and watch your back. Think of trust as a bank account. Every interaction you have with another person is either a deposit or a withdrawal. When you do what you say you're going to do, that's a deposit. When you listen without interrupting, that's a deposit. When you admit a mistake, that's a huge deposit. When you give credit to others, deposit. On the other hand, when you are late to a meeting, withdrawal. When you break a promise, huge withdrawal. When you talk about someone behind their back, massive withdrawal. The thing about legacy is that it is built on the compound interest of these small deposits over years. You cannot cram for a legacy. You cannot build deep trust with a grand gesture once a year. It is built in the thousands of boring, unglamorous moments of consistency. It is the say-do ratio. If you say you will do something and you do it, your ratio is 1.1. That is integrity. If you say you will do something and you don't, your ratio is off and your account is overdrawn. One of the most powerful ways to build trust and leave a legacy is to care about your people as human beings, not just as employees. This is radical in a world that tells us to keep things strictly professional. But people never forget how you made them feel. Years from now, they won't remember the quarterly meeting of 2024, but they will remember that when their mother was sick, you told them to forget about work and go be with her. They will remember that you asked about their kids by name. They will remember that you sat down with them when they were struggling and gave them confidence. Those are the deposits that never depreciate. That is the currency that buys you a place in their hearts forever. A legacy isn't written on a resume. It's written on the lives of the people you touched. Finally, the ultimate test of the gardener is knowing when to hand over the garden. This brings us to the third section, pass the torch. There is a tragedy that plays out in leadership all the time. A leader builds something great. They build a team, a company, a movement. They are successful, but they fall in love with their own position. They begin to derive their entire sense of self-worth from being the leader. They hold on too tight. They refuse to groom a successor because they subconsciously fear being replaced. They become the lid on their own organization's growth. And eventually, when they are forced out or retire, the organization stumbles because there is a vacuum at the top. To leave a legacy, you must have an exit strategy from day one. You must be constantly scanning for your replacement. This requires a profound level of humility and security. You have to be willing to teach someone everything you know, even the secrets that make you special. You have to be willing to let them shine brighter than you. There is a saying, a true master does not create students. They create masters. Succession planning is not an HR box to check. It is a daily mentorship practice. It means taking your high-potential people with you to the high-level meetings so they can see how it works. It means letting them lead the project while you sit in the back. It means giving them feedback that is designed to make them better than you are. It means celebrating the day when they no longer need you. Think about a parent teaching a child to ride a bike. In the beginning, you hold on tight. You run alongside them. You are doing all the work. But the goal is not to run alongside them forever. The goal is the moment you can let go. The goal is to watch them wobble, steady themselves, and then zoom away from you, faster than you can run. In that moment, you are left behind. You are standing alone on the sidewalk. And it is a moment of pure joy, because you have succeeded, you have passed the torch. Your legacy is that child riding the bike. Your legacy is the manager you mentored who is now a CEO. Your legacy is the culture that continues to thrive and innovate 10 years after you have retired. The ripple effect means that your influence doesn't stop with the people you know. The person you inspired goes on to inspire 3 other people, and they each inspire 3 more. You have started a chain reaction of goodness and competence that will travel further than you can ever imagine. As we close this book, I want you to zoom out. Look at your life. You are writing your legacy right now with every email, every conversation, every decision. You are either building a monument to yourself that will eventually crack and fall, or you are planting a garden that will reseed itself and grow forever. Leadership is hard. It is a burden. It asks more of you than other jobs. It asks you to be patient when you are frustrated, to be brave when you are scared, to be generous when you are tired. But it is also the most meaningful work you can do, because when you lead well, you change the trajectory of human lives. You give people the gift of their own potential. So go. Lead yourself with honor. Connect with others with heart. Inspire them with purpose. Stand tall in the storm, and plant trees under whose shade you do not expect to sit. That is the work. That is the journey. And it starts once again tomorrow morning. Self-help, how to lead and inspire others. Subscribe to Audio Waves.